Well, thank you for staying with us. You're still watching Politics Today on Channels Television, and my guest, the Minister of Information, Labaran Maku, is still here with me. Thank you for staying with us. We were talking about the ability of this government to fight corruption, and people will make as example of some of your colleagues who are being accused of corrupt practices, and they are still in government. Some of these concerns are being raised every day, and when we look at our journey into democracy, some people will say we have not done too well, or this administration, this government has not done too good in terms of fighting corruption.
Now, let me say this. Like I said, first of all,
the Nigerian economy has been state-dominated. One of the reasons for the transformation agenda of the president believes he must use reform to stop wastages and reduce corruption in the system. Now, I can give you examples. Now, if before so much money was being wasted on NEPA and power was not being generated, people
get promotions, people do all the things they will do. Today, that sector has moved on. The money we used to waste on NITEL is off. The money we used to waste on NEPA is going off. Now it goes to the private sector. It takes off all those wastages and the black holes that used to go, into running a bureaucracy that does not produce. Now, when the president wanted to deregulate the oil sector, we rose fighting him. Now, if that had been done, a lot of the waste that goes into subsidies today, with all the abuses, would have been completely dislodged. Now, the best way to fight corruption is to reform the economy and to ensure that we return to the private sector where we could return to the private sector. But talking about accusations of corruption, let me tell you, I can tell you that what I have personally witnessed in the last 2 years is that sometimes there are outlandish accusations, mainly by opposition elements, talking about, look at what happened in the case of the accusation that 148, nearly $50 billion was missing from NNPC. Now, that accusation went from 50 billion to 20 billion, and it went to and fro. Now, if you look at the last Senate report on the matter, you will notice that those accusations were not right. Now, every day you see a lot of people making outlandish statements. They accuse people in government of corruption, and they don't have, when we are asked to produce the fact, they don't come. For I myself, I give you an example. There was a day I picked a newspaper, I was told that I had shared 400 million. Maku and IM shared 400, to account for 400 million. I saw it on the front page of a newspaper. And when I looked at it, I found that the content was completely wishy-washy and there was nothing to it. Now, in the case of Nigeria, what the president has done, I can tell you this, virtually every case that has been reported relating to corruption and has been investigated, the president takes to court, takes to EFCC. Look at the subsidy abuses. All of them were charged to the EFCC, and today they're undergoing trial. Now, the president called a meeting, for example, of the National Assembly, the judiciary, and the executive, because a lot of the problems we have is also the speed in prosecution of corruption cases. And a number of the cases that have been in court, some of them 2 years, some of them 3 years, some of them 4 years, the president has asked if there is a need to have special courts, for example, to deal with the issues of corruption. And we are looking at this with the judiciary. For example, maybe you can try people like you do in election tribunals, fix time for people to go through their cases, and the cases are finished and prosecution concluded. Now, a number of the problem has to do also with the judicial process. Because as you see today, people go to court to bring injunctions and delay cases. Now, the president has been worried about that. Now, a number of the accusations that have been done against people are outlandish, sometimes really political accusations. So the fact that if I'm sitting in government today and you accuse me of corruption, you have to prove it. If you prove it, I'll be sacked, for example. If it is true.
Just a moment. Let me, if I may come in here, Honorable Minister, tell us, when we're talking about corruption, and some people talk in general that there's a systemic issue, that corruption is deeply rooted in some systems of government. But this time around, when we're talking about corruption that is relating to members of the president's cabinet, and they are overwhelming evidences, and we still find these people who are trying to dilly-dally the process of getting the fact out because they are part of the executives. Doesn't this actually smear the image of that particular institution?
No. There is actually a smear campaign, against a number of people in government. There is a smear campaign against a number of people in government.
Even when we see overwhelming evidences, where over evidences are there that such a thing happens. Take, for example, the purchase of vehicles. You remember the BMWs.
Yeah, the purchase of vehicles, the BMWs, the case has been handed over to EFCC. For example, the case is now undergoing a judicial process. So we want to see whether those abuses as alleged are true. So the president has already handed over the case to EFCC. The ones on oil subsidy, they are with EFCC. A number of those cases are with EFCC. But the president has also, if you look at what we did in terms of the biometric auditing, in government, we have saved a lot of money that was going into black holes. We saved, after a conduct about 15 MDAs, we saved about 118 billion naira, for example. So a number of reforms are taking place, and this president has done a lot in terms of even the prosecution. If you go to EFCC, if you go to ICPC, you see that a lot of prosecutions are going on relating to proving cases of corruption. But there's also a lot of politics in it. There are people who just specialize in accusing people of corruption to show that the president is not fighting corruption. See, if the president is just to sack people on the basis of accusations, then he will not be doing justice to people who have sacrificed their life to serve him.
So are you telling us that there are no corrupt members of the president's cabinet as we talk?
If you say there are corrupt members of cabinet, bring the evidence. And today, if individuals can go to court, for example, if you believe anybody has done something wrong, even individual citizens can go to court. That's what Gani was doing. You can also go to court to prove it. A lot of the accusations are political. What I've seen in the last 1 year, as we go through 2015, is that every day people just announce an allegation of corruption, and the newspapers will use them as headlines. Now, you look at all those things that have been done, a number of them is hot political accusations.
So you're saying, in essence, Honorable Minister, that they talk about corruption in Nigeria, and the issue of corruption is just mere political campaign. There is really no corruption in Nigeria. No. Is that what you're saying?
No. That's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying. I am saying that, yes, we know that there are strong issues of values in Nigeria. But a number of the accusations that people make, I told you I've been accused, for example, that that I and SGF, they accused us of corruption. Newspapers said we stole 400 billion. I mean, 400. And then we read the papers. Said they were talking about allocations since 2004. Now, I was not in government then. There was another time I came from the United States. I came home from an international program. I saw some internet. I said I was the most corrupt minister in the government of President Jonathan. So there are so many outlandish accusations coming from opposition elements, and they do so just to paint the government black. And so if a president is not careful, he will just be dismissing people based on accusations. So if people have cases of corruption, they should prove them.
All right, just away from that issue,
don't just make
Mr.
accusations.
Let me quickly take you to one very issue that concerns a lot of Nigerians. That is the issue of insurgency. But we've heard so many voices right from the president's quarters. Take, for example, we heard recently that the girls have been cited in a particular place, but the CDS says he's not going to say it. We understand again that there is going to be a form of amnesty. Is there any form of discord? Because what we hear are different tunes from the same source. Is there kind of a discord? Because Nigerians are concerned about this issue, but there's still criticism about the way information has been managed in the issue of insurgency.
Well, let me say this. The insurgency itself is a terrible outcome of very violent politics, which we regret, which I believe that all of us politicians should look at life differently. We should make sure that those groups we keep as talk to cause confusion, to come to power by every means, we must discard them. But in addition to this insurgency that we see today is also the result of international terror, which has grown since 2011, since attacks on the United States. What we see today is that international terrorism has connected several countries, from Afghanistan to Pakistan to India, to the Middle East states of Yemen, Iraq, Syria, Libya, Egypt, right down to Nigeria, to Central African Republic, and to Somalia. Now, the terrorism that has grown across the world in the last 10, 15 years has now become a global problem. And the problem of insurgency is that it's not a conventional war. And there are so many people that misunderstand this. The same enemy we are fighting in Nigeria is virtually the enemy you are fighting in Afghanistan. And so because this war is not conventional, and this war is, the enemy is not defined, the enemy is living among the people, and therefore the military are not finding it easy to locate and destroy, because the people that we call insurgents are also living among us. Now, to defeat terrorism is a different kind of thing, and no country has been yet able to deal with it.